Thank you for listening to Scandinavian Crimes Podcast. Be sure to check out the episode links and be part of our other social media platforms where you can leave a topic suggestion or even share some of your insights regarding the subject matter of the episode. We'll always do our best to provide a well-researched episode, but sometimes due to limited access, translation issues, and inconsistent evidence between multiple sources, there can be information that's lost. It is therefore good to do your own research and get a deeper understanding of a case of your own interest. So with that all said, let's start today's episode.
Welcome to Scandinavian Crimes. My name is Devante, and say hello to my lovely co-host, Delila.
Hi. Okay, I'm sorry. That was awkward. I'm sorry. Hi. Sorry.
And on this podcast, we talk about famous Scandinavian criminals who made their mark throughout Scandinavian history. So today is I say this every case, so I guess never mind me, but this is a very interesting case. It's an act of violence that seemed pretty much completely random, but what remained was a quiet street and a lifeless body, and the beginning of what would become one of Norway's most chilling and unresolved homicide cases. The randomness of the act, the senseless brutality, and the silence that followed made it more difficult for a grieving family and for the investigators who vowed to find the truth. So even though I didn't give you too much about this case, I really want you to kind of pay attention to the details because I want to know what you guys think when we get to the discussion section in terms of how do you think maybe they should have gone about investigating this, or what do you suspect could have been the possibility of the reason why this could have happened? But you already know what I'm about to say, of course. Come on, you're not new here. Grab your tea, you grab your snacks. If you're on your way to work, go ahead, tuck yourself into that nice little corner on the bus or the train, put your AirPods in real tight, because this is the story of Egil's murder. It was a cold night in 2002 when Egil Tostrup Bråten, a young man in his 20s, walked alone through the streets of central Oslo. He had no idea that two teenage boys were shadowing him, tracking his steps from St. Olavs Plass. The pair, one 16-year-old and the other 18, had set out that evening with the intention to rob. The younger of the two carried a screwdriver hidden on him, and the older had come equipped with two knives, one in each pocket. The boys had armed themselves, prepared for violence if needed. When they spotted Egil, they saw an opportunity. He was walking alone, appearing unaware, unguarded. They closed in on him and confronted him in what was meant to be a quick, one-sided robbery. But things did not go according to plan. Egil did not freeze, panic, or surrender. Instead, he resisted with everything he had. A tall and physically strong man, Egil was not an easy target. He lashed out with his fist, hitting at least one of the attackers and pushing them back several meters down the street with full force. What was supposed to be a quick mugging turned into a prolonged, violent struggle. In the chaos, the 16-year-old lunged forward with the screwdriver. He struck Egil repeatedly, at least once in the face and once in the shoulder. The blows were painful, drawing blood and escalating the panic of the moment, but they were not enough to stop Egil. He kept fighting, driven by fear, adrenaline, and a desperate instinct to survive. Then the 18-year-old stepped in, now holding both knives. While Egil was still fending off the younger boy, the older boy came at him with deadly intent. One of the knives pierced Egil's chest on the left side, cutting 6.5 centimeters deep. It was a single, devastating wound, and Egil staggered. For a few seconds, he remained upright, his body reacting slowly to the trauma, and then he collapsed. The two attackers didn't stop to check what damage they had done. They turned and fled the scene, leaving Egil lying on the cold pavement. Just minutes later, a patrol car passed through the same street. Police officers arrived quickly, but it was already too late. Egil had succumbed to his injuries, dying on the spot from the stab wound that had punctured deep into his chest. Despite the immediate efforts of the Oslo Police Department, the investigation stalled. There were no eyewitnesses, and the motive made the case even more difficult to solve. The randomness of the attack combined with the brutality of the violence challenged the police. The investigators followed every lead they could ever uncover. They combed through the surveillance footage, conducted door-to-door interviews in the area surrounded by St. Olavs Plass, and appealed to the public for information. Dozens of individuals were questioned. Some were ruled out quickly. Others lingered in police files as people of interest, but no arrest was ever made. Evidence collected from the crime scene included forensic samples such as blood and possible DNA traces, but forensic science at the time was still developing, and the technology available in 2002 didn't allow investigators to draw conclusive links between those traces and any individuals. Still, the samples were preserved, and the hope remained that one day, advances in DNA analysis might offer new answers. The case remained unsolved for more than a decade, and for Egil's family, the prolonged wait was agonizing. Grete Lien Metlid, one of the original investigators, continued to follow the case closely, even as she advanced to a senior position within the Oslo's police. Throughout the years, she kept in regular contact with Egil's family, offering updates whenever there were developments in the case. Though her messages were thoughtful and consistent, none brought the closure the family longed for. Year after year passed without answers, until 2016, when everything changed. Through a renewed and meticulous examination of the preserved DNA evidence, using more advanced forensic technology than had ever been available in 2002, investigators were able to reanalyze biological traces collected from the crime scene. They also revisited and reinterpreted earlier witness statements, connecting subtle details that had previously seemed inconclusive. Thanks to advances in forensic science and a renewed look at old evidence and witness statements, investigators were finally able to connect the dots. Their work pointed to a 32-year-old Norwegian man residing in Oslo who had originally been questioned as a witness years earlier, but had never been considered a serious suspect until now. Several years prior, the man had given a statement to the police during the initial phase of the investigation. At that time, his account did not raise suspicion. He was regarded merely as a witness. He was taken into custody and formally charged with committing or aiding in the murder of Egil. Upon arrest, the man firmly denied having any role in the crime. During the initial round of interrogations, his demeanor was notably uncooperative. He offered vague, non-committal answers and avoided providing specific details about his movement or actions on the night of the murder. Investigators observed a striking emotional distance in his behavior. He remained calm, almost indifferent, even when confronted with the seriousness of the charges. This detachment, combined with the lack of clarity in his responses, immediately raised concerns and deepened suspicions among the investigators. As soon as the arrest was confirmed, Grete reached out to Egil's family without delay. She asked them to come to Oslo for an in-person briefing. The request alone carried emotional weight. 14 years had passed since the night Egil was murdered, and the journey back to the capital was heavy with a mix of emotions. Upon arrival, Egil's parents and his sister were brought into a secure room on the 6th floor of the police headquarters, inside the red zone, an area reserved for sensitive cases. There they were met with Grete and police jurist Andreas Strand. Andreas began to walk them through the recent developments and explained that, as of that moment, the suspect had not confessed. The family was told they should prepare themselves emotionally for a range of possible outcomes. Then during the meeting, an unexpected call interrupted the conversations. It was a defense attorney representing the man in custody. The message was brief but significant. The suspect had changed his mind and now wanted to give a new statement. The man was escorted from the holding cells to a nearby interrogation room. As he entered and took his seat, the room was thick with tension. Then came the words that broke 14 years of silence. He said, "Now, I will tell you what happened to Egil." He didn't call him the man or the victim, but used Egil's name. That detail, seemingly small, struck everyone in the room. The man's demeanor had changed dramatically since the previous day. The suspect spoke quietly, but with purpose. His voice occasionally faltered, and his hands trembled. He appeared deeply affected by what he was about to reveal. He described the events of the night in 2002 in great detail. The decision to follow Egil, the plan to rob someone, anyone, and the eventual confrontation that ended Egil's life. As the interrogation continued, it gradually became evident to the investigators that he had not acted alone. Initially, he was evasive when questioned about whether someone else had been involved. The officers continued with steady, methodical pressure, firm, but without aggression. Eventually, after repeated questioning, he gave up the name. The second individual was a 30-year-old man who had never appeared in any version of the investigation before, not even as a person of interest. He had slipped entirely under the radar, living an outwardly normal life. In the years since the crime, he had followed the academic path and was now enrolled in a demanding program of higher education, far removed from any past tied to violence. When the second man was located and brought in for questioning, the atmosphere was markedly different. Though the police had never identified him during the original investigation, he did not try to evade the truth once confronted. After being taken into custody and presented with the details provided by his former accomplice, he sat down calmly with investigators and acknowledged his role in the events of that night. There was no denial, no resistance. He didn't try to minimize what happened, nor did he attempt to shift blame. Instead, he gave the investigators a full narrative of the night of Egil's murder, from the first decision to find someone to rob to the final fatal moments. His testimony filled in the gaps, confirming the previous confession and provided investigators with a complete sequence of events they had been trying to reconstruct for 14 years. In June 2017, the case finally went to trial in Oslo District Court. Both accused gave their versions of the events. While they were different slightly in their explanations of motive, the court concluded that the crime had been a violent, spontaneous robbery that escalated to murder. The younger man's attacks caused superficial injuries, but it was the older man's knife that ultimately took Egil's life. In 2018, the Court of Appeal delivered its final verdict. The older man was sentenced for 9 years and 6 months in prison for the murder of Egil. The sentence was 1 year less than the original ruling in the district court. The second perpetrator, who had been 16 at the time of the crime, did not appeal his conviction. He was sentenced 3 years in prison for attempted aggravated robbery. When the courtroom proceedings concluded and the sentences were delivered, a chapter that had remained open for 14 years was finally closed. Its outcome reignited national conversations about youth crime, the boundaries of justice, and the potential for rehabilitation within the legal system. For Egil's family, the verdict brought both relief and sorrow. For the investigators, it was a culmination of years of persistent, emotional, taxing work. The case stood as a testament to the importance of never giving up, even when the leads fade and time marches on.
So I feel like we have a kind of like a theme of unsolved cases that later get like noticed, or that evidence later get reviewed and kind of solve the cases. Like the past, like most of the episodes from this season is basically like that, which was not intentional. But in this case, it's a little bit different because they were teenagers, and it also was after 40 years, which is like within the what's it called again?
Statute of limitations.
Yeah. So it's a bit different, and it also is a little bit recent. So they did have kind of like a DNA forensic analytic technology compared to the other cases which were a bit older. However, it just wasn't as good as it is today, which is why it took so long for them to even get close to finding the men. And obviously we don't say their names because they were kids or children or teenagers when the case or when the crime happened. So we will call the older man or the younger man. or the 32-year-old or the 30-year-old. Just to clarify. So honestly, when they said that they had a hard time using the technology, it was a bit confusing to me, because I know that 2002 they should have been able to use the DNA or any type of evidence that they could provide from the crime scene, that they should have been able to, you know, get something. But I don't know if it was because of the digital aspect, like, oh, they don't have the Yes, Devante, you have the answers, my lord.
No. I was gonna say we're just forgetting. I know, like, you're like, oh yes, 2002, but also remember that part of the world, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, they were behind when it came to forensic technology.
But not that much.
No, they were. Compared to the US, we were more advanced, because also think about it differently. Population size is different. The rate in which crime is committed is different. So the need for technology wouldn't exist at the same time versus, you know, like over here in the US. So it's a little different versus, of course, and we've covered this actually in other cases where, like, oh, this early 2000s, why couldn't they do what we may have been able to do? Well, we have crazy people over here. So we needed that technology a lot sooner. And versus over there, population size is smaller.
It's not like that we didn't need it over here either. It's just, I feel like... But the thing
is, I still don't commit crime at this. I'm not saying you specifically, but that part of the world in general, your crime rate is substantially lower.
It is lower, but it's not so low as not to upgrade their technology. When it comes to technology, they're pretty, like, when it comes to technology in Scandinavia, we're actually one of the few that makes really good.
It's not that you guys' technology isn't advanced. It's just simply that there wasn't as much of a pressure to do it, because how many stories have we covered where, for the most part, neighborhoods were safe, children can go outside and play and blah blah blah, and even then, back then, this is still not as common as it may seem. We're covering all the cases that may have happened, but, you know, like, for example, I can walk outside right now and I can see a crime within 10 minutes. You know, because, all right, the U.S. is not out of control like that, but you know what I mean?
It is, like, kind of out of control.
It is, and it isn't. Digress. So but that's kind of the point. It's just like, they just didn't have the need for that technology in 2002. And it was later on when, to your point, even if the crime rate isn't as high, you still have the technology now because times are different. You know, you rather have it and not need it than need it and don't have it. And that's kind of the route that they took currently, you know, when it comes to stuff like this. So I get why that forensic science just wasn't where it should be. And even then, even in the US, 2002, it wasn't what it is today, you know, so, you know,
but
it's
you
fair.
know what I think they should have done, which was, I don't know if they did do it, but I feel like they were dismissing the witnesses and all other suspects a little bit too quickly. Also, I want to ask you this as well, but, like, do you think maybe doing some type of profiling and do like a behavioral analysis, or like maybe follow up on the anonymous tips or any type of things, like, could have helped? Because one of the witness ended up being the 32-year-old. So, well,
I always say this, and I said it in the last case and the case before that, and I said I think in the case last season. This crime was very random, so it's hard to pull out a motive from it, especially when that person may not live in that neighborhood, the victim. Also, it's random because it wasn't like a sexual based crime or a crime of passion. It was a single stab wound to the chest. That's it, which means it was less of this aggressive scene per se. And we know that based on their intentions. Their intentions was to rob. Now, once again, to circle back to what I was starting my point with, is that I think when you're judging scenes like this, I always start with people in the area, because what was it, the last case?
Because most of the people, witnesses were from the area.
And then oftentimes people who commit those crimes, very rarely will they go somewhere else to commit a crime. Just like that's not as common. Some people have, but for the most part, crimes that take place in the moment, it's usually someone within the area. So, which is why we found out one of the people literally was in the area. So that's always my initial suspicion. Basically, it has to be someone in the area. It has to be someone within a given area. And they actually interviewed the guy who was responsible years ago. They just didn't have proof that it was him. So,
but also they kind of dismissed him as well, because I feel like it said in the story, and also what I could find, that they were just like, oh, he was a witness, and this seems like there was no connection. And that's why I'm like, what could I have done to maybe find another lead? Or do you feel like there was nothing you could have done if you didn't have the technology? Do you feel like the technology is the only thing that they could have used only? Because
in this case,
okay.
In this case, I think it's strictly down to technology. That's why I'm usually more upset if the police didn't do a good enough job. But it was one of those situations. They interviewed people in the area, which, like I said would be the best option. They did end up encountering this person before, but because of technology, they can't just assume it's him. They have nothing to tie him to the scene. So in reality, that they did what they could have at the time. And then the second they were able to do more, they did do more. So, it's not their fault. They did what they tried. They really did try. They took the right steps, it seems.
Something that I also thought about, is that what if the culprit never confessed? Do you think that they wouldn't really be able to solve the case? Because, even though they have the DNA and they match with a 30-year-old, legally he could still deny certain things and be like, no, that wasn't me. I happened to be in the area, because they didn't have any other evidence to connect him with the crime. Do you feel like without the confession, would I have been able to get away with it either way? Loophole somewhere in the legal system.
What I think would have probably happened when it came to this case is if he would have denied it in the interrogation room and decided to go to trial, right? What I think would have happened specifically is that, all right, he would have pled innocent, and then this case would have probably been publicized. So eventually this would have been like, oh, it's an unsolved case based on Egil's death from back in the day and back in 2002, and this would have made the news. Chances are the 16-year-old who was the 30-year-old would have probably seen that news report. And based on what we know about the 16-year-old,
he seemed to have lived, changed his life.
He changed his life around, and I'm pretty and he didn't even deny. And when he went to court, he accepted everything completely. So he knew he was at fault. I think he would have saw the news report. He would have confessed and said, that was the guy who did it. I was involved too.
The moral compass of the second guy would have done it anyways because of his personality and how he changed.
Yeah, because it seems like when he was younger, he probably was just involved with
maybe he was following.
He was following the 18-year-old probably because he's older and he probably was making poor choices. And when you're 16, if you're not careful about who you're around, you can end up in situations like this where you have your whole life ahead of you and then someone drags you into something that can ruin your life. So I think that was the case in this situation where he realized, oh, this 18-year-old is a bum eventually. And as we found out, he's a 30-year-old. He got his life together. He was in a rigorous, educational program. And he came to terms with the fact that he was responsible. And he didn't deny it. He owned up to it. And I'm pretty sure they took that into account during his trial, which is why he got 3 years. And I know in Norway specifically,
he didn't even get charged of helping with murder. It
was attempted.
No, it was aggravated.
He
got charged for aggravated robbery, but he didn't get.
Yeah.
He didn't get.
But he didn't get attempted murder or manslaughter or anything like that.
Yeah.
Which means I'm pretty sure they took that into account. He really didn't.
He could have been charged for it, but they never gave him the verdict. They never did. Yeah.
So he could have did the final. Well, even though he didn't do the final blow, he still got his life together. He made better choices. He owned up to it, and it actually ended up paying off for him in the end because he only got 3 years. And obviously we're in 2025, those 3 years have been over. So I'm pretty sure he was able to still create some sort of life for himself. And I know in Norway and that part of the region of the world, your life doesn't stop if you go to jail.
They have really good systems.
They have really good systems for people who come out of prison for crimes. So his life doesn't have to stop. He probably is living a pretty decent life because he made the right choices. So at least that's my opinion. So I can tell this was just a situation that he was a young, impressionable kid that was taking advantage of an older kid, and eventually he did get his life together.
But that goes to my next question. Do you feel like the verdict was a bit too lenient because he changed his life? Do you think that you took it into consideration when they did the verdict? Or do you think, because technically you should just judge the case from that time, and also you should base the laws and everything from that time. So like, do you think in this case that it's fair because of what he did with his life afterward, or do you think that he should still be judged based on what happened?
I can't really say,
because I feel like it's a little unfair if we think about like what actually happened.
I can't really say what's fair or not because I'm not the victim's family. I'm looking at this from the outside. So in my opinion, it's going to be different. But I think in some circumstances, it's okay to consider, like in a situation like this, if the person actually became a better person even after all this happened, especially if they weren't the one responsible for the killing blow per se.
Maybe the actual murder did make him change, or like maybe it was the changing reason for him.
That's
or
probably that's that act of them attempting to rob and seeing somebody else he was with kill that person probably was like, whoa, this was not what I signed up for. This is not cool. And I'm pretty sure that was, I don't know for sure, this is strictly my opinion what I'm about to say right now. I'm pretty sure that might have been the driving force reason. I'm pretty sure this is the driving force reason why he probably was like, I'm not cool with this dude no more. That's probably why they didn't talk anymore, because that night probably put a wall in between them, because one person probably was just like whatever about it, and then the 16-year-old was just like, this is way too much, and probably you had to live with seeing that image over and over and over again, until all the way up until the police or find out he was involved. So that's at least I think, I can't say what's fair, but I think it's okay to occasionally consider when someone is no longer a threat to society.
Anything after that, basically.
Right. He never did anything after that.
That's why they never found him at all. You can tell he learned his lesson. Right. He wasn't involved in anything. He was never arrested. He got his life together. He was in education, higher education on top of that. He just pulled himself out of it. And I think that's occasionally that's fair to, at least like I said, my opinion, I think it's fair in some instances to be like, this person got their life together and they clearly learned their lesson. I think that should be taken into consideration in some cases, yes. Okay. In general, I think the verdict was reasonable. 9 years for the older man or boy.
Yeah.
And the 3 years for the younger one. I think it's fair. Yeah. And other than that, I think that's basically it. I thought that it was a lot of nuances here, and like what is right, what is wrong, or like how the trial and also how the police would charge and interrogate and everything. But it seemed like they did everything correctly. They interrogated them very correctly too, without like really forcing them to say anything or anything like that. So I think that the case was done very well. It just was very unfortunate with the technology that was limited.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So we can, I guess we can finally do what we usually do at the case at the end of the episode. But, As usual, let us know what y'all think about the cases. If you're watching this on Spotify, you can leave a little, message on the episodes. If you want to talk about it directly, reach out via Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. And let us know what you think about the case. And do you think it's fair that the 16-year-old or the 30-year-old got the more lenient sentence, or do you think it shouldn't matter at all? Let us know your thoughts. We're welcoming it. And also you can contact us directly through the podcast platform. So you can text us, leave text messages, and we can actually respond to them directly. So y'all let us know. And of course, to end the episode on a good note, let us talk about food. Good vibes. I'm going to start because I have something specifically in mind that is in my fridge that I'm about to bust down as soon as we stop recording.
Oh, that's unfair.
And that is, I got this food from, it's a restaurant called Curry King. And, there are a lot of people they're like Indian, and they have some amazing lamb chops with this sauce, with this basmati rice. Oh my gosh, it is heavenly. I'm actually trying to rush this along so I can eat that food.
That sounds really good.
Your turn.
I can't top that. I agree with that one. I just won't be able to eat it.
You can think of something. Come on now.
I guess soup. It's, cold now.
That's so
Ramen, though. I made my own ramen for the first time. Trying to be
fancy.
more responsible with my economy. Instead of ordering it, I just try and make it myself and see if it gets any better. It was good though.
That's good.
Yours sounds
ramen is
way
good.
better.
I like your ramen. It's good.
I'm a pro ramen maker.
But either way, guys, love y'all, appreciate y'all, and we will see you in 2 weeks for the next episode. But in the meantime, be sure to listen to the older episodes if you haven't already. Let us know what you think and show some love, and we will see y'all next time. Peace out.
Bye.